Everybody listening, if you're listening to us for the first time, whether it's on the radio or the podcasting sites, thanks so much. Podcasting people, like, subscribe, share. This is our second time on the program. We're so grateful to have somebody that's like a hero, and she really is truly a hero fighting for people for medical freedom. Dr. Mary Talley Bowden here on Fire Breathing Rob. She is an ear, nose, and throat doctor. It's breathemd.org. Breathe MD rather, Breathe on Twitter. I almost screwed that up, Doc. But again, MD Breathe on Twitter. And then it's drbowden.substack.com. It's day 8 on Substack. A lot there. You're doing amazing work, and you're doing it for the people that are listening and for the people that are injured and people that have suffered throughout 2020 and beyond. Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, thanks so much for coming on again.
Thanks so much for having me, Rob.
All right, so let's kick this around. You had a big day yesterday with some other great doctors that have been fighting the good fight for medical freedom. You were with the Fifth Court of Appeals yesterday, and it seemed like from stuff that I read and following your Twitter profile, it seemed like they were kind of agreeing with you and did seem like the government did step out of bounds as far as the ivermectin issue. Can you give the audience a little bit more background information about this case and what happened yesterday?
Yeah, we initially filed this case about a year ago, and it all started with the social media campaign that the FDA launched during the pandemic. It was August of 2021 when things were really heating up and ivermectin was becoming more and more popular. And they put out that tweet that most people are probably familiar with. It's the attractive young lady with a stethoscope around her neck, nuzzling the horse, and the caption says, "You're not a horse, you're not a cow, stop it, y'all stop it," or you don't even need the caption. You know what they're trying to say. And that created just an avalanche of backlash. It made my job a lot harder. I had pharmacists refusing to dispense ivermectin. We had hospitals across the country refusing to give dying patients ivermectin. We had had a medical board at a hospital come after me for using ivermectin. So it created a lot of problems. It was more than just a tweet, and they bragged about it. Their internal emails showing how excited they were because it just went viral. And like I said, it caused an avalanche of problems. And the FDA's role is to approve medications and then it stops, right? Unless there's some tremendous safety concern where they have to issue a black box warning or they have to pull the drug off the market. They're really not allowed to tell patients, okay, you can't use it for this type of disease. Up to 40% of drugs are prescribed off label. So even though it is not technically approved for COVID-19, it should not matter. Yet they told the public, no, you should not use it for COVID. And that's going beyond their role. They're going outside their lane. And so the lawsuit is to put them back in their place, remind them what their job description really is, and that the FDA is not your doctor. So the initial hearing, they filed a motion to dismiss, and they won based on the fact the concept of sovereign immunity, which is basically saying that you're not allowed to sue the government. And it gets a little complicated. I still don't quite understand how they pulled that off. And the hearing yesterday was to challenge that sovereign immunity status. And shockingly, the FDA basically said, yes, we are immune. We cannot be held accountable. The only thing that holds us accountable is the political process. The courts cannot hold us accountable. So that was interesting. And the reaction from the judges seemed to be a little bit, well, hold on a minute. Is that really the case? And they seem to really challenge the FDA. Of course, we just won't know until we get the final decision, but it did seem promising.
So you also talked about in the last interview, but you didn't speak about it just now, but they were hammering you with bots. Are you still having issues with people writing these fake Google reviews and getting the bots on Twitter and all that other gobbledygook that they've been pushing at you since day one?
Yeah, the Twitter bots are not as much of an issue, and at this point, I mean, I could care. The only thing the Google reviews bother me because
Right.
I can't get those off, even though I can prove if they leave their name, I can prove that they're not my patient, but I can't. There's nothing I can do, so that bothers me. But that's sort of the least of my problems right now. The medical board, the patient care. I still, I mean, I've written 2 prescriptions for ivermectin today, and I had to, brainstorm with the patient which pharmacy are we going to use. I can't just send it to the regular pharmacy. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the patient can't use their insurance to pay for it. They're concerned about the cost of it. It's really bad.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you about the accessibility of ivermectin. So I know that it was very accessible before the vaccines came out. Then obviously when they came out, because they needed that emergency authorized use, if they were finding there were treatments that were off-label, such as things that you used, which was steroids, ivermectin, list goes on and on. For people listening, we do have to say this, that ivermectin by FDA, by CDC, is not treatment for COVID-19. We do have to say that whether we believe it or not, regardless of that point, they could not get that authorized use if there was those treatments out there, which you and many other doctors saw that there were other treatments that were helping people, and there was a push against that to don't do that.
Right. It really made the job a lot harder. I have a list of pharmacies that we rely on, but again, the insurance companies are not paying for it. If the patient needs it on a Sunday, they're out of luck, and oftentimes on a Saturday, because most of these small pharmacies aren't open on the weekends. So it's still a problem. I mean, we can get around it, but it adds an extra hurdle to the patient care, which is completely unnecessary.
Dr. Mary Talley Bowden here on Fire Breathe Rob. Again, if you want to find more about her on Twitter, it's MD Breathe, and then her website is BreatheMD, and obviously Dr. Bowden rather, on Substack. In general, it's day 8 on Substack too. I want to continue on this. I'm sure you've discussed this with a lot of patients as far as ivermectin goes, and you just spoke about how tough it is to get that prescription. How much are we looking at as far as costs for people that do need to take that around?
Well, so one of my patients today needed some ivermectin, and he said, has the cost come down at all? Because the last time I got it filled, and he got it filled for 5 people, his whole family, it cost him $2,500 for a treatment
Wow.
course. Now that's the highest I've heard. So I will say we did not use that pharmacy. We chose a different pharmacy, but it would be unusual for it to cost less than $50 for a typical course, which and that's,
is this a generic brand? Sorry to interrupt you.
yeah, it's very generic. It's just the price, even for me to get it wholesale, is expensive. There's only one manufacturer in the US. And because I think the demand has gone up so much, they're able to raise the prices.
Wow. Because I know some of these pills, regardless of what they are, they're like 20 cents, 1 cent, 5 cents,
Right.
to make. It's just a joke. I do want to go into this. So, just continuing on with you, and I do want to move into the Texas Medical Board in just a second, but just to finish off the FDA issue. So what is next in that fight? Is there talk about when the decision is going to be made, around what time frame? 2 months, 3 months, more than that?
They don't give us any idea, but my attorneys think it probably will take 2 to 3 months. What's interesting is the big Missouri versus Biden case, the one where they're telling the government that they cannot communicate with social media companies. That is coming up with the same court, the same judges, either this week, later this week, or next week. So it's right around the corner from our case, and we think because there is already an injunction in place, so there's already a rule where the government is restricted from a temporary rule where the government is not allowed to contact these social media companies. Our attorneys believe that they will focus on that case first because of that that temporary injunction that's in place. And so they will prioritize that case, and ours may take longer to process.
Okay. Moving into that Texas Medical Board, if you want to give a quick refresher for people that are just hearing about that issue when it happened back a couple years back with the patient you were helping out. And also, I know they were really pushing you to the limits as far as making you pay tons and tons of money for attorneys, legal fees. They were trying to take away your medical license. What is going on with that? But if you could just give a brief refresher to people that are just hearing about you now.
So it's from two hospitals reported to me to the medical board. The first was Houston Methodist. They went after me on Twitter. They said I was dangerous, harmful to the community. And I found out, and they suspended my privileges over what I was posting on Twitter. I found out that my privileges were suspended from a reporter who texted me, a reporter from the Houston Chronicle. And so I almost immediately resigned because I was so upset over how that was handled. So if you resign while they're investigating you, then they report you to the medical board. So that's one complaint. The second is from another hospital in Dallas where I was trying to help a dying man obtain ivermectin. His wife had sued the hospital, and I was their expert witness. And as part of the lawsuit, they needed a doctor to write a prescription for ivermectin to be handed in with the lawsuit as part of the filing, which I did. And they went after me for doing that. And it gets a little complicated. They're saying that I never examined the patient. And I'm saying, well, telemedicine was alive and well during the pandemic. Most doctors wouldn't touch a COVID patient. So I don't know why telemedicine can't apply. He was in a coma. I wouldn't have been able to do a FaceTime with him. And his wife was his power of attorney, his legal proxy. So I discussed everything with her. And then they're acting like I wrote orders for him to get ivermectin in the chart, which is not how it happened whatsoever. So there's a lot of, anyway, so we met and they said that they'll let this whole thing go if I pay them $5,000, if I do 8 hours of CME, if I retake the jurisprudence exam, which is a legal test that doctors have to take. And I said no, because I have zero to hide. I want everything to come out. I want to show how corrupt this whole thing is, and let's get it all out there. But I won't have another hearing until April of 2024. So it's going to drag on for a bit.
Wow. And that man that died, he ended up dying, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong with that. He was actually a sheriff. Is that correct?
A sheriff's deputy.
Okay.
He had 6 children. He had no medical problems other than obesity before, when he got COVID. He wanted to get ivermectin. He tried to get it before he was hospitalized. So he was familiar with it and comfortable with it. And he never was allowed to get it in the hospital. We won the case initially, but then the hospital appealed. So he was never allowed to get it. But his wife did rub it on him daily. And he eventually made it out of the hospital. But then he died in April of this year just because he was just so run down, the recovery. He never really fully recovered.
I want to ask you this because Texas was always considered a bastion of Republican politics. It seems like in the past few years, especially with the demise of California and the political issues there, homelessness, all this woke ideology, a lot of people have been moving from California to Texas, Florida, many other states. And from speaking to Dr. McCullough, he stated that the Texas Medical Board used to be very conservative and more toward the right, and now it's, bleeding blue more so than it did before. You would agree with that then?
Well, my theory is that healthcare is turning Texas blue. Healthcare is the fastest growing industry and the most dominant industry in our state, and it brings in people from all over the country. We have Houston has the largest medical complex in the world. So yeah, in the world. And Texas Medical Association is the largest physician organization in the country. Texas Medical Association supports gender affirming care. It's very pro-vaccine. It's anti-medical freedom, and they're the largest physician organization in the country. And they've got that's where the problem is. And I don't know if their policies are bleeding into the every political agenda of the state, but they certainly dominate healthcare agenda in Texas.
Why do you feel like it's Texas and not a place like Florida? Florida is the third largest state in the country under Texas. Governor DeSantis won that by 19 points, 1.5 million votes. Obviously, he's running for president. It's going to be a tough campaign against President Trump because of what's been going on with the issues in court. But regardless of that, why do you feel like Texas, not Florida?
I feel like Governor Abbott is more establishment Republican. He's not. Mm-hmm. He's less likely to buck the system. He's also in a wheelchair. He is his life has been saved by the medical community. He's probably very loyal to his doctors, and he feels a dependence on them that a lot of people wouldn't probably have. I mean, this is a theory, and I've never spoken to him. I don't know, but this is how I see his point of view, is that he's going to be a little less likely to challenge the medical system in our state, and our medical system is pretty strong. And we've got, like I said, we've got the largest medical complex in the world in Houston, Texas.
Listen, you staked your life, your career on helping people throughout COVID-19 and after that, people that have had issues with the shots. I want to go into this because a lot of people, including family of mine and friends, think that their doctors are Jesus Christ. They believe everything they're saying. You could show them the information from these healthcare insurance companies, healthcare companies that were paying these doctors extra money as far as the how many shots their patients got. They don't believe that. Do you think that's a problem in this country, that a lot of these people are into this cultish mindset? There are some great doctors out there for sure, 100%. People like you, people that are fighting the good fight. There's a lot of these people that are maybe on the younger side. They're in their 30s and maybe late 20s, and they are just following the book, following what the CDC, the FDA says. They have no critical thinking skills and no reason to go off label and off the book and try a different way. You think that's going to be a problem in society? I think it's already here, especially if you sped it up. Go ahead.
And unfortunately, I think medicine has become politicized, so that now, I think a lot of people turned against hydroxychloroquine only because of Trump. I don't think it had anything.
Well, listen, I got to interject here. I interviewed a woman that her husband got COVID back in April of 2020 in New York City before hydroxychloroquine, the Trump stuff came out, before it got banned. They treated him in a New York City hospital with hydroxychloroquine, along with a couple other medications. He was out of the hospital in 4 days. This was a guy that was in a nursing home, and he ended up dying after the shots, 2 weeks after the shots. Regardless of that, the hydroxychloroquine did save his life. They truly believe that. And then all of a sudden, Trump comes out, says his spiel. Trump says it. It's, the Antichrist said it. So we gotta cut the can with that and just cut it off. And then the story as well as I do. But go ahead. I'm sorry, but
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people are intellectually lazy. It's just easier just to go along, right? I think a lot of people won't believe it until they see it firsthand. And then I think a lot of it is unfortunately now driven by politics. I mean, now I'm some right-wing anti-vax conspiracy theorist because I'm reporting about what I see every day. And, apparently it's all driven by my devotion to Trump, who I'm actually mad at, because I don't like the way he handled the whole vaccine or the COVID shot. So I'm not a Trumpster, but.
Well, neither am I. And, between us and everybody listening has heard this, I used to be a very flaming leftist Bernie Sanders supporter until the injury happened. When the injury happened, I opened my eyes, and now I'm seeing what really went down, whether it was the lockdowns, the mandates, and also what went down with the shots and the disaster of that. I, agree with a lot of things President Trump said and did. The problem is, as you stated, Doc, with the vaccine, is that he goes out on the campaign trail and says, the vaccine was God's gift to the world. He took $1 million from Pfizer. He asked RFK Jr. to be his vaccine man when he came in back in 2017. And then all of a sudden, someone got his ear, and that can just got kicked way down the road. It's nowhere to be found now. And listen, I still registered a Democrat in Florida, and I only stayed in that party due to RFK Jr. running for president, and I will vote for him. And then, I guess we'll have to either play it with DeSantis or Trump. And I'm very cool with voting for Governor DeSantis, who I used to despise.
Isn't that great? I mean, yeah, well, that's what we all hope. I mean, I'm very sorry about your injury, but at least you're actually acknowledging. I mean, there's some people that even with the injury, they don't.
Well, Doc, between us, I know some people I feel like they're injured, and I think personally they believe they'll never admit to this. I think that they've been brainwashed into this cultish liberal hysteria mindset. With that, they obviously got 2, 3, 4, 5 shots, and they refuse to admit that they put poison in their body. And for them to say, hey, and it's hard for me to do, say, and I only got 2 shots. For us to say, like, listen, I got 2 shots and now I see the light, I put poison in my body. I can see that because I'm working hard. I'm working like a deer as far as I can to get better, to win this battle, win the game for me. I'm only 34 years old, just turned 34. And I feel like I have my whole life ahead of me. And I'm trying to fight not only for myself, but also for a lot of people that are injured and, have given up. The people that committed suicide due to these injuries. I mean, there's a battle out there, and people like me and other people need to stand up and fight. But I believe that's why a lot of people that are injured that refuse to admit it, because they're still in that hysteria and they don't want to admit that they put poison in their body and try to figure out how to adapt, how to get better. And all that politics, as you stated, has been inflicted into the conversation that somebody like you, somebody like Dr. McCullough, many other doctors, Pierre Corey, that are trying to help these vaccine injured people are conservative right-wing nut jobs that just are spewing the Trump QAnon line. I mean, I can, do the verbal diarrhea and say all the code words that they've used because I've been there, but it's really sad. And we pray for those people, and we hope that those people eventually will see the light before it's too late.
Right. I hope so too.
Yeah, I want to get into this as we kind of go into the audience questions, but just to kind of finish off on you, how can people help you out in any way, shape, or form? Because like I said, you are really fighting the good fight, not just for people that are injured, but for people that suffered with the mandates, and also for people in general that believe in medical freedom.
Well, I think continuing to keep the conversation alive. I know everybody's a little tired of COVID, but I appreciate you keeping the conversation alive. I think social media is a necessary evil. I think I think being out there and vocal. I mean, there's not, unfortunately, I don't know what the magic answer is because I feel like we really haven't made too much progress. But continuing to talk about it, keep the conversation alive, get active. You can also get active on a grassroots level with local politics. Unfortunately, politics has come into play with this, but trying to get politicians to listen to us. And there are some, but there aren't enough. And we need more politicians to listen to us so we can get some changes enacted. So that, unfortunately, it's hard to know what to do, but just at least keeping the conversation alive.
Well, you brought up this point when we last spoke that you do all these interviews about your story. You feel like not much is coming out of that. And I can understand that it is very hard to break through, especially with all the censorship guidelines on these social media and YouTube, Rumble, all these channels. Regardless with that, I believe we still have to keep putting people like you and other people that are fighting the good fight, are bringing out these studies and helping people that are injured with this shot. And my reason is because the mainstream media, they're just moving on to Trump. They're just moving on to Biden. They want to move on to 2024. They want to act like 2020 through 2022 never happens. It's over. If you are injured, you're screwed. That's your problem. It's your life. But people, again, like you and other doctors are still fighting the good fight. And that's why I want to keep doing these interviews with people like you, because regardless if we get 20,000 people, 150, whatever it may be, people watching this, hopefully that person will tell another person. The story will eventually get out. Because in my opinion, Doc, I believe everybody truly knows a friend, a family member that is injured by these shots. And they might not agree to it. They might not believe it, whatever it may be, but they do know. And that's how we keep the word going. And hopefully they write their letters to people in Congress, their state government, federal government, whatever it is, to keep the pressure on these folks. And that's what we need to do, because there are some people that are fighting the good fight. I think Governor DeSantis is really trying to balance and fight the good fight and, make sure he's trying to win a nomination, but he's still trying to fight the good fight. He said some great things on COVID. RFK Jr., I mean, he stands 1-0. I mean, he's number one as far as fighting the good fight. And he's been doing this for quite a long time. Ron Johnson, senator from Wisconsin, really standing up and fighting the good fight. He's been doing it for quite a long time, too. There's a few other people that are fighting. So, again, we got to keep getting these interviews out. And for people, again, that are listening, this is Dr. Mary Talley Bowden here on Fire Breathing Rob. It's breathemd.org. And also on Twitter, it's MD Breathe. And her Substack is drbowden.substack.com. Definitely follow her. If you can give her a couple of bucks on subscribing to her Substack, I think it's a good read. I think it's worth the time. I want to go into some of these audience questions, Doc. The mainstream media is trying to push some narratives now with flu season coming and the COVID season coming out, saying that COVID cases in Texas are going sky high. Florida, too, is sky high. They always mention the red states first, by the way. They never go to the blue states first, but that's par for the course. But regardless of that, what would you tell people that are still in, again, there's a lot of people like this, they're still in that liberal hysteria, wearing 1, 2, 3 masks, getting 5 shots, and they're scared to death of what's up next?
Well, first of all, think about in your lifetime, have you ever had to take multiple shots months apart to keep yourself healthy? Does that make sense? No, it does not make sense. Okay, so think about that. And I would just say, despite me being called the right-wing anti-vax conspiracy theorist, I do have a lot of experience with COVID. I have treated at least 5,500. I haven't counted in a while. It's probably more than that now. Everybody that I treated with early treatment is alive and well. So if you are proactive, and this is probably the most important thing I learned during this pandemic, is that you can treat a virus, because doctors are trained to think that you cannot treat a virus. The virus just takes its course. There's nothing you can do. You don't want to throw medicine at it because it won't work. That's how we're trained, but that is wrong. That's the most important lesson I learned during the pandemic, is there is plenty you can do for a virus. And if you go to flccc.net, you can learn all the things that are possible. And I would say what I'm seeing now is very mild compared to what we were seeing a couple of years ago. But nonetheless, I still treat it. I still help people. I saw several people today with COVID that I gave medications to. So I would just try to use some common sense around this and think about the fact that never before have you had to take multiple shots a year to keep yourself alive.
I'm not a doctor, of course, but I do want to say this from a person that's not a doctor, and I believe you'll agree with this as a person that's a doctor. Make sure you're taking good vitamin D every day. Be outside in the sun. Again, if you're outside, you're getting exposed to many different, things in the air and stuff like that. That's not the correct terminology, but everybody knows what I'm speaking about. A virus, and you're getting exposed. Your immune system is growing. It's fighting off things every day, every second. Keep the vitamin D level up. Again, when the winter comes, make sure you're taking clean stuff. Don't take something from CVS or Walgreens. Talk to a nutritionist. Talk to a doctor that knows good supplement companies with not all the chemicals and fillers and all the gobbledygook in there. Exercise. Make sure you go out and work out. I know in the past 3 years, none of our mainstream media news was talking about exercise. They were shutting down the basketball courts, the skate parks, the beaches, because they didn't want people to exercise. But exercise, eat good organic food, fruits and vegetables. These are simple things, Doc. We don't have to have, master's degree, doctorate degrees, be medical doctors to know this. This is simple common sense. Put your critical thinking caps back on. People lost that in 2020. Let's get back to this. This is easy things. This is like peanut butter and jelly. Wake up, America. I don't know if you have anything to add before we.
Well, I will say, I check people's vitamin D levels pretty often. And I would recommend, if you've never gotten your vitamin D level checked, get it checked, because I would say the majority of time people think their levels are okay. And most of these people are taking some sort of supplement, and majority of time they're not where they need to be. And it's an easy test. You could go to any lab test now and get it if you don't want to go to a doctor's office. And we like to see it between 50 and 100. So the cutoff value at least through LabCorp says 30, but we like to see it at least 50. So that's a little tip I would recommend you get done, because all the time I see it's not where it needs to be. And that's a huge impact on your immune system.
I just tested. I was at 67. I was a little upset that I wasn't higher. And I'm going to try to
everything in moderation. You don't want to get too high, but I'm proud of you. That's 60 is good.
Yeah, well, so anyways, we'll move forward. I agree with you 100%. I want to finish off with some of these audience questions. I believe we have 2, 4, 6 quick questions left before we let you go. And always appreciate your time. It's always a good, fun, informative interview with you. Again, Dr. Mary Talley Bowden. It's breathemd.org. Twitter is MDBreathe, and Dr. Bowden, rather, .substack.com. I always struggle with the last Substack, how to say your name on that. But regardless of that, let's talk about this. You kind of talked about in the last question about supplements. Any kind of specific supplements or medications people should think about? Again, we do, this is just, not medical advice. These are just suggestions. If you do want medical advice, you should speak to your own personal doctor. This is just an informative session. But any kind of medications people should look out for going into flu and cold season, or supplements they should be, loading up on as we move into the winter months in the next few months?
Well, when you take vitamin D, we like you to take it with K2 and magnesium, which helps the vitamin D do its job better. I would say that if you're looking for a good sort of multi-purpose supplement that has a little bit of everything to support your immune system, there's one called Sunfluencer that I like. And it was created by Dr. Simon Goddick, who's very active on Twitter, and I trust him. So I like that one. I know that I'm a big fan of vitamin C as well. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Merrick with FLCCC.
He's in your lawsuit, correct?
Right. And he was the one that discovered the huge efficacy of IV vitamin C high dose in patients with sepsis. So I like when patients come in who are pretty sick. I like to give them an IV with high dose vitamin C. Now, you don't necessarily need to go to that extreme, but if you feel like you're coming down with something, then really loading up on your vitamin C. And as long as you have good kidney function, you don't have a history of kidney stones, it should be okay. Any excess will get excreted, but you could take 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams a day when things are really flaring up.
All right, so we'll just keep moving into these audience questions, Doc. We've heard a lot about nattokinase as far as there's been studies out, Japan, as far as it breaking down the spike protein in the body. What is your opinion on this? Do you think that that's the best way to go? Is there other ways? Does it depend on the injury? What's your take on this?
Well, I know there's studies, and I do recommend it to certain people.
Who would be somebody you would recommend it to? Somebody that just had the shot, or?
Well, I have a lot of patients come to me. Well, first of all, if somebody has a vaccine injury, I usually start with both ivermectin and nattokinase.
Mm-hmm.
I have some patients that have sort of some vague symptoms. You're not really sure. And I discuss the option with them. We don't always go with it, but I discuss it as an option. Vaccine injuries are hard because we don't have testing. A lot of times the tests end up inconclusive. And so we're just going off of symptoms. And although a lot of the symptoms are very distinct and easy to track, some of them aren't. And so anyway, we have a discussion about it. I include it in every discussion I have with a patient with either long haul or vaccine injury. So I don't have a lot of personal success saying, oh gosh, the nattokinase, worked wonders. And I have a lot more personal experience with ivermectin in success with ivermectin, but I haven't been using nattokinase as long. So I'll just say that I have been using it more and more. I haven't seen any side effects that are worrisome. Mm-hmm. So there's that. I just haven't had a lot where a lot of people tell me, oh gosh, the nattokinase worked wonders.
Okay, fair enough. And thank you for your honest opinion on that. I want to ask you this question. When you're dealing with these people that have injuries, are you seeing people that have similar symptoms? Is it like an inflammation thing, a nervous system issue? Because I hear, speaking to a lot of people that have those sort of injuries, I hear a lot about inflammation and nervous system, autonomic nervous system, stuff like that. Are you seeing that too or no?
Yeah, I would say there are three clusters of symptoms that I see most often. One is skin manifestations like rashes that are really bad, very itchy, tend to be all over the body. And I've seen tremendous results with ivermectin working on those. The second cluster is neurological, tremors, burning sensation, tingling, tinnitus, brain fog. And then the third is cardiovascular. I'm an outpatient clinic. I don't see patients coming in with myocarditis, but I do see patients with the autonomic nervous system issues where their blood pressure goes up and down, up and down. I've seen some patients with new onset hypertension. I've seen patients that have had blood clots. They're not coming to see me for blood clot, but they're coming to see me after they've been diagnosed and treated, and then they want sort of further advice going from there.
Because I'm hearing a lot of people struggle with, and even my personal injuries is with the vertigo issues, which I would say is more a neurological thing. The issue with brain fog too with me. You spoke about the tingling, neuropathy. I heard, not just me, I'm hearing a lot of people having small fiber neuropathy. Now, I don't believe I have that, but I have regular neuropathy, and it's mostly at night. But I'm hearing a lot of the same things, like I said, with that inflammation, the vascular inflammation that's really high when they do these cytokine blood tests. and it's showing these really elevated levels. And I'm
Mhm.
also hearing a lot, and I want to just, pick your brain on this. A lot of mental health issues are evolving due to the shots too, where people that didn't have issues with suicidal thoughts, anxiety, depression, the list goes on, are coming out now with all these mental health issues after they've had these shots. Are you seeing that too in your practice?
I can think of one case, and the parents came to me about their child having new onset psychiatric issues, which they
Hmm.
thought were from a shot. But that's the only one where I can think of somebody, I would say a lot of people are just psychologically damaged from the aftermath of the other symptoms. I see that a lot. Just very anxious, depressed because they're
Well, it's
having these.
also the medical system has really burned them
Right,
to shreds. I mean,
right,
people saying, and I know personally, people would say that your condition is non-existent and you're just
exactly.
depressed and have anxiety, and we want to put you on these pills. I had
Mm.
someone told me I should get a third shot. It would help my symptoms go away. And thank God I prayed that, to God every night that I didn't fall for the Kabuki theater that was going on at that time period. But
Yeah,
yeah, there's some crazy stuff in the medical field that's going on, and it's still going on in some places
yeah.
also.
I remember a patient that was put on Prozac, Valium, and Ambien for her vaccine injury. I just flabbergasted.
Yeah, it's really disgusting. And that's, we go back to this, and I don't want to rehash this, but just to end this and put the exclamation point, this is where we go back to people, are just burnt out, as you stated, with the whole medical system, with people making fun of them. I've been laughed at by doctors too, showing them these blood tests with the inflammation levels out of the park, sky high. And, what can they say, So, anyways, just putting the exclamation point on the vaccine injury group, any kind of advice for these people? As you stated earlier on, I feel like the progress is very minimal due to the governmental organizations that are really not studying these issues. And they're
Mm.
making it very hard for the people that are trying to study and put these peer-reviewed studies out, due to, the complete hold that these companies have on media, on the government in general. Is there hope for injured patients, or is that kind of wishful thinking?
Well, I mean, I think there's a network of doctors like myself who
Mhm.
are aware and not will not gaslight patients and are willing, a lot of it unfortunately is trial and error, but the step one is finding a doctor that's not going to put you on a psychiatric medicine for your symptoms, right? I mean, so uh but and if you go to React 19, or if you go to FLCCC, or if you go to American Frontline Doctors, you can find doctors around the country that will at least try to do what they can to help. And I've had some good success. I mean, I'm not I, I've had some really good success, so I think there is hope. And I don't think you have to spend thousands of dollars to get some relief either. I mean, that's the other thing is, a lot of these, I think hyperbaric oxygen has been
Mm.
helpful, but it's also expensive. But there's, I've had the most success with ivermectin, and that
Yeah.
one, it's not as cheap as it should be, but it's still pretty accessible and affordable if you can find a doctor willing to help you.
Listen, nothing against the hyperbaric oxygen chamber, but I've been told, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, it's 60 grand. And
Oh
I don't,
no, no, well, it
there's
shouldn't be
some,
that much.
I don't know, maybe that was
Like for the
somebody that was
actual
just,
chamber or the
I don't know. I was told by somebody saying that that's the price to go in there and do treatments. If that's the case, I don't know.
No, well, that's highway
That,
robbery.
I mean, maybe that was somebody just misconstruing what was going on there. I don't know.
Well,
But
they're different level. There's a mild hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and then there's there's a much more intense hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and you don't necessarily need to do, and maybe the intense hyperbaric oxygen therapy maybe in some places costs that much, but you can find the milder version of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And I mean, typically like when we do it, it's about $100 per session. So it's not,
okay. So that's fair. Yeah.
it's still
It's
expensive, but it's not
expensive, but yeah, but not 60 grand. Yeah. Anyways, just to finish off with this last question. So, this was an audience question. We kind of dabbled into the politics. It stinks that we have to really dabble it in, but as a person that's been big involved as far as COVID, as far as helping people throughout the past 3 years, who do you feel like is the best candidate for medical freedom running for president? I spoke to you earlier that I stayed Democrat due to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Otherwise, I would have changed my registration and voted for Governor DeSantis because, as we talked about, Trump on the vaccines, Trump on the $1 million he got from Pfizer back in 2017, the RFK Jr., where he was going to bring him in, and he didn't end up doing that because someone got to him. Do you have an opinion on who you believe is the best candidate for medical freedom going forward in this election cycle?
Well, I'm a Republican. I'm not a right winger, but I'm a Republican. So, and I've always loved DeSantis because he took action. I mean, he did not, he stood up to everybody during the pandemic, and he took so much heat. And maybe he didn't do it perfectly, but of everybody, I mean, he just stood out as being, of everybody, the one that really just didn't bow down to, the FDA and the CDC. He just stood up to people, and he gave me hope. I mean, and so I like RFK too, though. I saw DeSantis in action, and I feel like he has a proven track record for doing the right thing, even when it's hard.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as a person that's a Floridian now, I agree with you. And as I stated, I didn't like the governor. I didn't vote for him either time. Again, I was in the liberal hysteria brainwashing techniques were being worked on me throughout the media and throughout college propaganda in the past. But you come to find out, and I'll end with this: with getting the injury rather, it really opens up your eyes, and I kind of see it as a moment as something happens to you in your life. It could be a midlife crisis, could be a diagnosis of cancer or another serious illness, and you don't know what's going to happen next for you. And you believed all these people were helping you, doctors, family, friends, and then they all look away and they make believe that you're like some psycho nut job that's just selling right-wing propaganda. And you wake up and you say,
Right.
what the heck have I been doing all my life, for how many years it's been going on? And that's one of the few things that I'm grateful from this injury. I mean, it's sad to
Right.
say that I'm really not grateful that I got the injury, but I'm grateful that I woke up and I actually see what the hell is going on in this country. And it's very scary to see when your eyes are fully open and they're, open wide. Leave the people that are listening to this conversation, because I'm assuming we're going to have a lot of people that are vaccine injured, and also people in general that are very big medical freedom people. Leave them with some hope, if you could, Doc, as we end.
Well, I think that enough of the public now has woken up. I mean, we still have a lot of work to do. That and we know there's gonna be some new disaster on the horizon any day now, right? With the election coming, there's gonna be something, and it sounds like it's gonna be viral, right?
Yeah.
And what an easy way to, I mean, not, but it's interesting because 9/11 brought the country together, right?
Correct.
But this was so clever on the part of China, like it just divided our country. I mean, it was very strategic. And anyway, I think that we're going to see more of this, but I think there are enough people now that if they push this on us again, people are going to rise up. I mean, I kind of hope they try to push it on us again, and before everybody forgets, before it's lost the fresh, it's still fresh in people's memories. But I think if they try this again, that's when we're going to see real change. So,
Well, listen, the uptake on the shots very, very low, extremely low. People have said, as you stated earlier on in our conversation, why am I taking 5, 4, 3 shots every 6 months? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's a total joke. I mean, they don't even do that with the flu shot or any of that stuff. So people, again, I'm grateful that they are waking up. We still have to battle against the people that are in the cultist mindset. And, I have a couple of friends, and I'll end with this, that say, if somebody's wearing a mask, you got to yell and scream and make them feel shamed. And I said, I was one of those people that was wearing 2 or 3 masks. I was very down the drain as far as that. We can laugh at it now. In fact, I was down in Florida, I'm down here, and there was an older woman, 50, 60 years old, probably close to the late 60s, I would say. And she was riding on a bicycle with a mask on. This was 2023.
right.
And one of the girls that I'm friends with, she laughed. I said, we can't laugh at these people. We have to figure out how to get to these people, whether it's telling a story about a friend or a family member that is injured, or just trying to say, put your critical thinking cap on and try to read a different perspective instead of CNN and MSNBC. It's just about having open dialogue and open thought. And the yelling, the screaming, the name calling, the left is doing that. We don't need to keep doing that and say, we got to be louder than the left. No, we have to bring out the facts. And
Right.
that's why, like I said, what you're doing with Pierre Corey, with yourself and the other people that are involved in this lawsuit. And we need more people like you that are helping people like me, and also bringing out the facts and making, hopefully, these people that, perpetrated this crisis on us accountable.
Right.
And that's the way we win the fight. People
Right.
are injured, people are dead, but for those people, we have to keep up the fight and keep pulling forward. Again, Dr. Mary Talley Bowden here on Fire, Breathe, and Rob. She is at breathemd.org. It's MD Breathe on Twitter, and drbowden.substack.com. Doc, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Always a great conversation. I'm so grateful to speak to you again. And I hope we can do this again.
Yeah, I'd love that. Thank you, Rob.
I got my COVID-19 vaccination, and here's why. This isn't about gimmicks or sentiment or what commercial I like. This is about facts. COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective. Millions of doses have already been given in the United States, and these vaccines have the most intensive safety monitoring in U.S. history. People from different races, ages, genders, and ethnicities participated in large clinical trials around the world to make sure this vaccine worked for all kinds of people. The amount of time and effort dedicated to developing these vaccines was huge. Scientists used existing research and technology so they could get the vaccines developed quickly and safely without skipping any steps. If you need any more information, use a reliable source like the CDC website to get the facts.
I'm getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Yes, there could be some short-term side effects from the vaccine, but they go away in a day or two. Those are signs that my body's building protection. It's worth it to avoid serious problems from COVID-19 disease.
I got my COVID-19 vaccination, and here's why. This isn't about gimmicks or sentiment or what commercial I like. This is about facts. COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective. Millions of doses have already been given in the United States, and these vaccines have the most intensive safety monitoring in U.S. history. People from different races, ages, genders, and ethnicities participated in large clinical trials around the world to make sure this vaccine worked for all kinds of people. The amount of time and effort dedicated to developing these vaccines was huge. Scientists used existing research and technology so they could get the vaccines developed quickly and safely without skipping any steps. If you need any more information, use a reliable source like the CDC website to get the facts.